and welcome to Classic Vinyl Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Justin. I'm here with my other host, Tyler.
Here I am. I've decided to come again.
Well, that's good. It's good you showed up.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, so you excited about getting to this album tonight?
Yeah. This one's a little different color.
Yeah, it was different than what you're used to.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, one thing that's, I know I said this right before we put the album on, I should say, that you hadn't heard any of these songs on this album, most likely. Is that true?
I would say that's 98% true.
Now, where do you get that other 2% from then?
I believe that there was a section of this, one of the songs that was in the movie Twister. So I had heard that.
I'm not sure of that, but that could be true. So I guess we got to take care of a little business first. We had Eric from Wisconsin email us that he was a little upset over our review on Cream. He thought that our album ratings, I think we both rated it as a 7.
Yeah, I was a little...
you might have rated it even a little lower.
I think I gave it a 6, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't think that was in line with how good it is. And I just want to straighten something up that, you know, we're not professionals. We're just people like everyone else. We just tell you how it is.
You know, Cream they're a great band. I enjoyed the album and, but it wasn't my cup of tea.
Well, and see, for me, I didn't enjoy the album. That's why I rated it that way. I think there's 4 really good songs and some mediocre and some that aren't good at all. And I'm rating it as a complete album. And I think I did say in the episode that, you know, if we took 3 or 4 of the best songs on there, those are 9 out of 10 songs without a doubt. And so that one was kind of where I'm at, but we can only do what we can do, right?
Yeah, I guess maybe they put together this cream of the crop band, and I expected a little bit more.
Well, I think their singles that they released, their heavy rotation songs, and as you get into their later albums, I mean, I'm not sitting here reviewing them, but I have listened to them, and I would rate some of their last 2 albums a little better. So it is what it is.
Sorry, Eric, but obviously you have a much better opinion of them, or at least of that album.
Well, and of course, that's all it is an opinion. It is what it is, and we think what we think, and that's all we're here to do, right?
Yeah, and once again, feel free to send us any kind of criticism, or, if you think we were unfair to past albums, call us out.
Yeah, tell us. We'll read them on air. We're not afraid. We're not afraid to, if people disagree with us, whatever, we're fine with it.
It'll probably hurt my feelings. I'm pretty thin-skinned.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But that's why we're reviewing them. This is what our thoughts are on the albums, and we're just being honest. So it is what it is. Now, tonight's album is going to be interesting because we're getting to one of the groups that's highly considered one of the first heavy metal or hard rock bands or someone who really started that movement, I should say. And of course, that's Deep Purple.
Yeah, this was a very heavy album.
It really is, especially even for 1970s standards, but even for today's standards, it's a shock to the system. It's an album I've liked for quite a few years. You know, we obviously could have picked Machine Head, their number 1 best-selling album of all time, but In Rock to me is a better example of the Mark II lineup. So it'll be kind of interesting. Let me give you a little history on Deep Purple first. They're an English rock band. They were formed in London in 1968. So they've been around for a little while. And a lot of the early songs they released, they have famously Mark 1, 2, 3, and 4 lineups, just kind of describing the different lineups Deep Purple had. And on their Mark 1 lineup, they were more in line with the sounds of the British, the different bands coming out of Britain. Hush was their first big song that came out, and it's nothing like the In Rock album. It's a completely different feel. This was kind of the first album for the it was the first album for the Mark II lineup, the new lineup. They decided to go the heavy rock route. If that's what they were out to accomplish, they did it.
Oh yeah, they definitely hit the bullseye on that one.
They are considered to be pioneers of heavy metal and hard rock. Them and Black Sabbath especially. I think more so Deep Purple is than Black Sabbath.
I'd have to agree. These guys are much heavier than Black Sabbath was.
The funny thing is, though, the band themselves, they dispute this and just see themselves as a heavy blues rock band. So,
I can see that too.
Yeah, it's a little of both. And I think one thing that sets Deep Purple, especially in the In Rock album that we'll get into apart from other heavy metal, is the use of the organ in this.
Yeah.
Deep Purple, they've sold over 100 million albums worldwide. It's nothing to scoff at there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're a very popular band, even through all their different lineup changes and things. They've released 22 studio albums, a ton of live albums, compilations, reissues, everything like that. And like I stated earlier, many people that know Deep Purple refer to their lineups as Mark 1, Mark 2, 3, and 4 just to describe. The original lineup, which was Mark 1, was consisted of Richie Blackmore on guitar, Rod Evans on vocals, John Lord on keyboard, Ian Pace on drums, and Nick Simper on bass. And on the Mark 1 lineup, they recorded the first album, Shades of Deep Purple. It reached number 24 in the U.S., The Book of Taliesin, and Deep Purple, the self-titled album. Mm-hmm. Also, the Mark 1 lineup, their big hit was Hush. It reached number 4 on the U.S. charts. Oh. And it is completely different music than this. And they also did a cover of Neil Diamond's Kentucky Woman that reached number 38 in the U.S. So those are kind of their big hits, before they got to the Mark II lineup. Now, the Mark II lineup consists of Ian Gillan on vocals, Roger Glover on bass, and they actually replaced Evan and Simper. Mark II lineup is considered their most successful, their most well-known and popular lineup. They released the album In Rock that we're going to do tonight, which it reached number 4 in the UK, number 66 in the US. Fireball reached number 1 in the UK, number 32 in the US. Machine Head, which is their most popular, reached number 1 in the UK, number 7 in the US. Made in Japan reached number 16 in the UK, 6 in the US. And Who Do You Think We Are was 4 in the UK and 15 in the US. So most of their albums are in the top 20 on these Mark II lineups.
Yeah, these guys had a style of their own that really resonated with people.
Oh, it's certainly a different style. And I mean, you can tell the beginnings of hard rock in this. Yeah. I mean, this album, it kicks right off the beginning. Mm-hmm. But so if we get into the Mark III lineup, they actually replaced Ian Gillan, the vocals, with David Coverdale, which David Coverdale famously started the band Whitesnake in later years. That's where you know him from. And Glenn Hughes, who was on bass and vocals, and that replaced Ian Gillan and Roger mm-hmm. Glover. Mark III albums were Burn, which reached number 3 in the UK, number 9 in the US, and Stormbringer, which was 6 in the UK and 20 in the US. Mm-hmm. And then on the Mark IV lineup, you had Tommy Bolin on guitar, replacing Richie Blackmore, who had actually founded the group. Some people feel like that's kind of when the group ended in a lot of ways, some don't. And they did have mild success. They released an album, Come Taste the Band, reached number 19 in the UK and number 43 in the US. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't a failure.
There was multiple bands to and from Deep Purple that there's just a whole family tree feeding into Deep Purple. Too many to mention.
Well, it sounds like
these band members went other bands and they come from other bands, and there's a big family tree that you could do a whole episode on to go into that. So it's a little deeper than we're going to go today. The band actually split in 1976. They had a ton of reunion shows, right? Mm-hmm. And then they actually had a Mark V, a Mark VI, a Mark VII, a Mark VIII, up to a Mark IX lineup that aren't near as popular, but just all kinds of different lineups. The popular Mark II lineup that had the most success, they did revive that band for about 5 years during the 80s. You've had a lot of popular guitar players like Joe Satriani, Steve Maurice, Don Airey. They've been in the band. Richie Blackmore, John Lord, Pace, Gillan, Glover, Coverdale, Evans, Hughes, they were all inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016 with the band. Pretty much all the band members from the early, Mark I through Mark IV were inducted into the Hall of Fame with the band. It's kind of interesting. So you're ready to get to the album?
I am.
And now it's time for the album review.
Okay, so Deep Purple in Rock. It was released on June 5th of 1970. It's the band's fourth studio album, but it was actually the first album recorded with the Mark II lineup, like we talked before. And once again, that's Richie Blackmore on guitars, Ian Gillan on vocals, Roger Glover on bass, John Lord on organ, and Ian Pace on drums. They recorded this album at various studios in the London area. They had multiple engineers, Andy Knight, Philip McDonald, Martin Birch. And Martin Birch actually produced the rest of their albums up to 1976 after this album. In Rock reached number 4 in the UK, which is pretty amazing considering how heavy this album is, which kind of tells me the UK people were maybe ready for it more than the US was.
Probably so.
I mean, it only reached 43 in the US, which isn't bad. Certainly not in the top 5 like it did in the UK. And this mainly was Deep Purple's attempt at recording heavy music after hearing Led Zeppelin's debut album, because they thought, this is heavy and we want to outdo that.
Right.
And that isn't disputed by them. I mean, Richie Blackmore says that's basically what they went in. We need a heavier sound. Led Zeppelin's the new sound. We want to be heavier than that. They accomplished it.
Yes, they did.
There's no doubt about that. Now, the cover of the album is kind of interesting. It features Mount Rushmore. It's a picture of Mount Rushmore, but instead of the presidents, it's got all the band members on the faces, and that's where you get the in rock. I think it's kind of a double meaning, obviously.
Yeah, play on words there.
And another interesting thing about all the songs on the album, no matter who wrote them, all the songs are credited to all 5 band members, which I like when groups do that because it seems more like a group than having a storm ahead leader in a way,
Yeah.
They had one single that was released not off the album, but for the album, which was Black Knight. It's obviously not contained on the album. That reached number 2 in the UK and number 66 in the US. And funny enough, they released the single the same day as the album, which is kind of strange. They generally would release a single leading up to it to generate interest and things in it, but they didn't do that. So
how does the song Black Knight compare to the songs on this album? Is it a good example of what Deep Purple is?
It is. And we actually probably should have listened to that to review this, but of course we're just reviewing the album. The one difference about the US album as opposed to the UK album is the opening song Speed King has like a 1 minute, it's kind of an instrumental intro, and it's known as Waffle, WOFFLE. It is not included on the US album, so we didn't hear that because that's what we listened to was the US vinyl. And it's kind of interesting. We'll have to listen to that one time. I've listened to it before, but it's kind of neat just to have that on the song.
Yeah, I guess I can understand why they would release the, just to back up a second about releasing the single separate from the album. If you buy, maybe this is a way of the band like offering a gift to their listeners or their fans, like, hey, we're not going to make you buy the single separate from the album. The single's going to fit with the album, so you're not going to have 2 copies of the same song. You're going to have something that complements.
Yeah, and I mean, that was commonplace back then, especially in Britain. The Beatles were common with it, where they'd release a couple singles and then release the companion album to it, but they wouldn't put those singles on the album, right? So people would have to buy the singles if they wanted them, but then they bought the album, they weren't buying the singles again. A couple of things with the Beatles, like when they did Revolution as a single, and then it was on the White Album, but it was a different version. So that was kind of what you're kind of playing to what you're saying, is they didn't want people buying that song twice. And that's kind of what, I kind of like that in a way, but then at the same time, it's separated from the album, right?
Yeah.
In general,
so if you want to listen to, Black Knight, you're going to have to buy the single.
Well, exactly. But at least you don't have to buy it twice.
Yeah.
But the fact that they released it the same day doesn't make much sense to me, because generally you release a single, weeks before the album to generate the interest in the album. And so you can, get that going. But it just kind of strange that it was released the same day, completely separate. But on the 25th anniversary reissue of In Rock, Black Knight single is included on the album, along with some other outtakes and things. So, and this has been a pretty popular album. It's sold over 13 million copies. Not a bad album for them. In fact, it is the only Deep Purple album that has a book written about it.
Oh, really?
It's called The Story of Deep Purple in Rock. I haven't read it. I think with their famous Mark II lineup and going to this heavy music, it was a turning point, not only, especially for Deep Purple, but for music in general. I don't know what a lot of people say, but, it's funny that Deep Purple themselves refute the fact that they're the beginning of heavy metal, because I think in a lot of ways, sit down and listen to this album if you haven't, and tell me if you don't think this is different from everything else coming out in 1970.
It's pretty hard.
Yeah, it is. So I think it's time to get the album. You're ready to go?
Yep.
So here's side 1.
Side 1.
So it opens up with Speed King, and boy, does it open up.
Super heavy introduction.
Yeah, this is a heavy song. It really is. It's got an amazing bass riff. This whole song was developed from a Roger Glover bass riff that he actually was intending to emulate Jimi Hendrix's song Fire. He had heard Fire and he thought, I love that bass riff. He wanted to turn it up, make it heavier, and he did a good job because
it sounds just like Hendrix.
Yeah, but in a heavier way. It's kind of strange, but and this is kind of the thing about this whole album, and I love the album, but the vocals are kind of strange in it. And I mean that because they're kind of almost in the background with a lot of reverb and a lot of echo on them. You know, some songs are worse than others. It's hard hearing the vocals. Now, I haven't listened to the new remaster, so I don't know if they brought those vocals forward or not. It's kind of the way I'm used to hearing it, right?
I didn't hear very many of the lyrics.
No,
I did catch him say, I am the Speed King a couple times.
Yeah. Well, during the chorus, And this song was originally known as Kneel and Pray. It was a live song that they really, just developed over years of playing it live into this heavy song. So, and obviously this is the song that originally had that 1 minute instrumental intro called Waffle on the UK album, but not on the US album. As far as I'm concerned, with this song, it's got, good guitar in it, but this isn't one of the songs that's super prominent with guitar. The bass is definitely more prominent on this than anything.
The bass is the star.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There is good drumming in it.
But there's a really good mix there with the keyboard and the guitar.
Yeah, the solo with the keyboard.
Yeah, I'd call it a duet because the guitar complements the keyboard.
Well, it kind of starts with a guitar solo, then it goes into a keyboard solo, and then they kind of mix in.
They mix in,
It's pretty cool sounding, but the guitar, with the exception of that solo and the ending's like a crazy, messy guitar sound.
Yeah, it does that crash ending that's very typical of heavy metal.
Yeah, kind of in a way. And you know what I like? It's hard to call, when I say the word heavy metal or hard rock, I'm not thinking like Megadeth and Metallica and those Anthrax and those kind of things, because this is completely different music than that.
No, this is like really heavy blues rock.
It is. It is like a heavy blues, like 10 years after, or Led Zeppelin or something like that, but turned up to 10, sped up and turned up.
Well, not to mention that these guys are all just beating the crap out of their instruments. These guys are playing their guts out.
Yeah, in an amazing way.
Yeah, and it sounds good. I mean, it's not enough to get you discord, enough that it's just really heavy, really hard rock.
Yeah, what really stands out to me, especially in this album, obviously Ritchie Blackmore and his guitar. He's an amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
He does amazing, but I think one thing that's overlooked as far as history is many people might not know John Lord's name as playing the organ, but this guy kills it. When you're talking rock and roll history, you don't hear a lot of organ. There's a lot of it in the Doors, and there's some other bands like Iron Butterfly and those that use it to a certain extent. But these guys, it's very prominent throughout. And not only is it prominent, it breaks down into some heavy solos with organ and creepy sounding, but he plays it. He doesn't just sit back on it and play a couple notes like a piano. He treats it like a true instrument.
No, we haven't seen anything like this since Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
That's an interesting comparison.
That is a very interesting. How about maybe since Chopin?
One of the two, but I don't think either of them played an electric organ.
They didn't play it that hard, I'll tell you that.
No, they certainly didn't. So that opens up with Speed King. It's definitely a pace setter for the album.
Yeah, it is.
There's no doubt about that.
Excellent way to start the album.
So second song, Bloodsucker. This song was recorded at both the Lane Lea Studios and Abbey Road Studios in London to finish it up. The one thing about this song for me, I think it's got a good bass line. I like the guitar riff runs in the choruses and throughout. And the screaming in this from Ian Gillan he's an amazing vocalist. And I guess that's why I say, the vocals are a little background in a lot of these songs and have maybe a little too much reverb and echo on them, because I'd like to hear the vocals a little better, because Ian Gillan's a pretty measured singer. And even when he screams, it just fits in with the feel of the song, right?
Yeah. Something I noticed about his singing in this is he does some really cool things with his voice that he adds some little effects in there, a little bit, shakiness to it, or a little wobble to his voice, and it adds this cool effect. It makes for a very enjoyable performance, and it adds to it. He does with his voice what I would describe as being kind of like a whammy bar does to a guitar. It bends it in a way.
Yeah, and he's very measured with it.
Yeah.
It kind of like when we talked about, was it with the Guess Who? Yeah, I can't remember, but either way, he's got a very measured way of screaming and singing at the same time, and not sounding just crazy. It's got a good tone. It fits in, and that's why I'd like to hear the vocals maybe brought a little more forward. But it seems like with this album, especially in the production, they're looking to key in on the guitar and the organ and the drum, the instrumentation much more.
But I'll say everybody in this band gets to showcase their talent at some point in this song. This is another showcase song.
Yeah, it certainly is. So not a bad song.
Mm-hmm.
So then we move to the third song that closes out the first side. And the reason there's only 3 songs on this is because obviously this is Child in Time, and it's...
Yeah, this one's 3/4 of the side.
Yeah, exactly. It clocks in over 10 minutes, so it's a long song. This is a song that I really, really enjoy. It's kind of an epic anthem in a way, I guess. I've listened to it for years. So to give you a little bit about the song, the main theme of the song, or the main little riff of the song, is actually a slowed down version of a song by It's a Beautiful Day called Bombay Calling. They used to mess around with it a lot, and they finally slowed it way down and kind of give it that creepy, surreal feeling, The words were written by Gillan on this one, even though it was credited to the whole band, but it's basically about a protest to the Vietnam War.
Very effective protest, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And this song became an anthem for the anti-communist groups in Eastern Europe during the Iron Curtain period. So it's a pretty important song, and it's obviously the longest song on the album.
Yeah, I've got a ton of notes written on this song.
So do I. And, I'll say up front, this is without a doubt my favorite song on the album. I know we'll get to winners and losers, but this is my favorite song, and it always has been. I love the intro. I love the organ intro with a little bit of the cymbals into it. This one does have probably very prominent reverb and echo on the vocals, more so than I wish. And I only noticed that.
It's haunting what it does.
Yeah, and I kind of wish it didn't have that as much, but at the same time, it fits, And I didn't even really notice it. I've listened to this album hundreds of times, right? Heard this song hundreds of times, and I've never, until I sit down to review it, I've never really thought, oh, those vocals have a ton of reverb on them. It fits into this song perfect.
This is the song where I believe I've heard 2% of this album because part 2 of this song where it goes into that that I believe is in Twister when they do their first storm chase.
We're gonna have to check into that because I've seen Twister, and you would have thought I would remember that.
Plays the video of it.
Well, and that's one of the things after you get through the first verse and stuff, when he goes in that little falsetto harmony, his wailing. Yeah. And it kind of grows and grows until it's finally like a scream.
Yeah, there's so many emotions in there. Everything from sorrow to fear to anger. This thing just progresses. It's beautiful.
The funny thing is as many times I've listened to this, my first note on this was, it's got a really good guitar solo in the middle. And then you know what I did? I scribbled out good and wrote, this has got a great guitar solo in the middle. Richie Blackmore blows this one out of the water. And I love this because it kind of comes up to a semi-crescendo in the middle, but then it slows way back down and goes back to that main little slow riff, back to the organ, the main riff, from Bombay Calling that they kind of worked out. Dun, 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 doo, 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 doo. And it's kind of haunting in a way. I just love it. The lines drawn between good and bad. This song, I could say a lot of things about it. I just absolutely love this. I love the wailing at the end, especially. Gillan goes absolutely crazy at the end, wailing into a huge crescendo with organ solo, and then he just ends it screaming. And, it kind of reminds me of A Day in the Life by the Beatles, the way that ends with the big note on the 5 pianos, but this is like in a hard rock fashion,
So it's with a keyboard.
Yeah, it's just kind of, because it builds and builds and builds at that end, and you got the screaming, and then boom, it just ends with that one note hit on multiple instruments. And There isn't much I don't like about this song.
No, I'm going to jump into lyrics like I always do. This is one song on the album where I can understand what the lyrics are saying, or at least some of them. And it's very well written. The blind man shooting at the world. That's an excellent representation of war because it's just so dangerous that you've got a person who can't see what they're shooting at that's firing a lot of bullets.
I mean, that's kind of a rhetorical statement and a literal statement, isn't it? I mean, it's got visionary lyrics, but they all mean something too. And that's one thing you notice through this. You've got a lot of like anti-war songs and anti-drug songs at the same time. And you wouldn't think of a hard rock band as being anti-drug.
No.
And I don't know how anti-drug they really were.
And to have like a heavy song, because typically soldiers like heavy music, especially, modern day. They're very much into the heavy metal type stuff.
Yeah, don't you think Child in Time, though, it has like the perfect... I love how it just starts slow and just has that dun, dun, dun. Yeah. You've got that, but then it just builds and builds.
Yeah.
Until it's about ready to blow up, and then it slows back down. Yeah. And then it does it again, but at the end, this time, it does blow up, right?
Yeah. A lot of what war is that build up to the battle comes, maybe it ebbs a little bit. It's not a full on fight. Somebody chickens out and retreats, and then it builds up again. And then somebody chickens out and retreats, and then they've decided they're backed into a corner, and then so it builds up again. Then it really takes off.
Yeah, but I think you are right. This song, probably out of any of them on the album, you can hear the lyrics the best, and that's just because the lyrics are sang during the slow down portion of the song, and all he does during the sped up part is wail, and scream, which I think it fits in perfect with this song.
Yeah, the other lyric that I wrote down that I really like is he talks about wait for the ricochet, meaning that a bullet has two chances to kill you. Just because it missed you on the way in doesn't mean it's not going to ricochet and get you on the way back.
I don't see that as literal with a bullet. I see it as being like when you come home from war and you have injuries or mental issues or PTSD, which wasn't really known as at
all
that
of that
time,
baggage that you're taking on that you don't even know about.
That's how I take that as, but I guess it can have kind of a double meaning there, right?
Yeah. Well, once again, we're sitting here listening to the same song, and you're getting that, and I'm getting this, and it's the same song. It's beautiful.
Well, that's what music's about, right?
Yeah, and this actually made me wax a little poetic. I have to read what I wrote down here. I said, war is an adrenaline-fueled murder rampage by two enemies using their friends as swords and shields.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And that's what this song was saying to me. There's a good point in being anti-war.
What's funny is the one good thing that come out of the 60s and 70s, especially, when we're talking music, is you look at how many songs were written against the war. I think at the time people thought that, maybe minds are changing and the new generation isn't going to be the same, but it's unfortunate because we are.
Yeah, we're still fighting battles.
Yeah. I don't think it'll ever change.
No.
But Child in Time closes out side one of the vinyl. It's an excellent song, but now we're on to side two.
Side 2.
And it opens up with Flight of the Rat.
A very fast song.
Yeah, this is a pretty fast song. And this is the second longest song on the album. This one's 8 minutes long. So this was the last song they recorded. And they recorded this one at Delaney Studios in London. It's kind of funny because Roger Glover actually did a rearrangement of a Russian orchestral interlude. It was named Flight of the Bumblebee, but they changed it up so much, and they named it Flight of the Rat. And this, according to the band, is actually an anti-drug song.
You can kind of hear that little bit of that Flight of the Bumblebee at times because it's a very fast song.
Yeah, it is. And, I was listening to some of the lyrics getting kind of into the Tyler fashion,
Yeah.
When I was 17, my mother said to me, be careful what you touch. You shouldn't take so much. So it's kind of interesting because it does, refer to drugs and taking certain things. And so, it's really interesting song. I really like the use of the organ in this. It's got really good guitar in this song again, and then it gets amazing after the organ in the middle of the song. This song, if you want to really check out John Lord's amazing playing on organ, the organ solo in this is the best on this album, in my opinion.
I believe that. This song's got some really excellent performance. Once again, one of the things I think about this is they have substituted drug abuse for drum abuse.
Yeah, because it does have an amazing drum solo
and he
in this.
beats the crap out of his drums.
But
I feel so bad for that drum set.
But in a measured way, and it sounds good, you know.
And that's the thing is, I say that drum abuse, but like, I just really would hate to be the drums after he's done playing, but boy, he plays them so good.
Well, and I made one note on this song that this is the best song musically on the album.
Yeah.
I think it's the song that shows off drums, the guitar, and the organ, keyboards equally. Yeah. And it's funny because in a lot of their songs, they switch from a drum solo to a keyboard solo to a guitar solo to a keyboard and guitar solo, and they mix it in, but they make sure you get a taste of all of that.
I jotted down, these guys played this song to pieces. Everything was smoking when they finished, including the studio, and maybe that's why they this was the last one they recorded at that Delane Leah Studios. Maybe the studio burned down because they started a fire with
or they got kicked out.
That could be too.
Because one thing you can say about this music is, I would say, even look at Black Sabbath, okay? This is one notch above Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is a little slower and creepier.
Yeah.
This has got some serious runs. Some of it, funny enough, some of these songs kind of remind me of what Judas Priest later did with their things. They did something different with it, but it has that feeling to me.
Yeah, these guys show you just how quickly and accurately they can pick out every note and every strike of the chord, whatever. It's awesome to watch these guys and listen to them. Whereas Flight of the Bumblebee uses the violin to do that. They do the same thing with the guitar in Flight of the Rat.
Yeah, this is just an amazing song and one of my favorite on the album. I think, like I said, musically, it's the best song as far as showcasing everything together, and it's just a good song.
For sure.
So we move on to the next song, Into the Fire. This was written by Roger Glover. The lyrics is a warning against drugs, so another anti-drug song.
It's got an ominous marching beat to it that just, continues to march,
Yeah, and to me, this song is kind of muddy sounding. It's not, I don't know if it's not mixed well or whatnot. To me, there's nothing really great about the song. The guitar's not great in it. There's nothing that really showcases it. The organ's not super great. The drums aren't great. It's just kind of a muddy sounding mix.
There is something about this song that reminds me of The Doors.
Really?
And it's probably the keyboard.
You think I would like that because I'm such a big fan of The Doors, but I'm not a fan of this song.
I know. And that's what I feel bad saying that to you because I know how dearly Jim Morrison sits within your heart. So.
Well, I wouldn't say Jim Morrison sits dearly within my heart. In fact, as the years went by, I'm more of a Doors fan than I am a Jim Morrison fan. And I know that sounds strange, but, Jim Morrison doesn't exist without the Doors, and the Doors wouldn't exist without Jim Morrison. They're same being. So it's kind of a full package,
And this song reminds me of the Doors for some reason.
Well, and that's fine. It could. I just think for me, musically, this didn't stick out, and it's really muddy sounding to me. Not bad, just not great for me.
Yeah, there was something a little "Come On, Baby, Light My Fire" about this song, but yeah.
Well, maybe that's because it's called Into the Fire. You're not just thinking about fires.
That's true.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it is about drugs. In fact, he talks about a mandrake root in this song, and we had to look that up, and it's actually a hallucinogenic root of a plant.
Very popular in the Mediterranean area.
Yeah, we're going to have to get us some of that. So this song actually fades into the next song, Living Wreck. And it's one of the earliest songs written for the album. Prominently features Ritchie Blackmore he does a guitar solo on an octave pedal, which kind of gives it that crazy sound. The song opens with drums and a scream from Gillan.
This song has a really good, in fact, this one and Into the Fire, they have a good strutting beat to them.
It does have a good beat to it.
These two are a good pair to put together.
It kicks into an instrumental break in the middle, which is okay. It's not the strongest on the album as far as I'm concerned, but it's pretty good. Some warped organ sounds that are pretty darn good. And the distorted guitar in the main riff is good. It's not, Blackmore's best work, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I have written off to the side here that this is a good example of just musicians playing. They're very capable musicians.
Yeah, it's kind of a filler song for me on this album, but not a bad one. I don't skip it. It sounds to me like Living Wreck is about an untidy and strange woman.
It's what I've got here is it sounds like she's someone that makes big talk of big promises, but just never delivers.
Yeah, and it seems to me like she's just kind of a trollop that wants him, but he doesn't want to get into all the troubles she causes or something.
Because she's a living wreck.
Yeah, but it also sounds like he didn't find that out for a little while, so it might be too late.
He might have been burned a couple times before, huh?
Yeah. So an okay song, not a bad song at all. Then we move on to the last song of the album. It's a pretty short album, really, only 7 songs, and it's Hard Lovin' Man. Hard lovin', not loving.
Yeah, they dropped the G.
Drop the G. So this song was created from a Roger Glover bass riff that they, it kind of was developed out of a jam session with the band.
Yeah, this is an excellent rhythm. I've heard this kind of rhythm in other songs like Barracuda from Heart, even a country song, Hooked on 8 Second Ride, Chris Ledoux, there's a dun 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 dun.
Yeah, it does have that galloping main riff.
That just galloping is a good word for it.
Yeah, it gallops throughout. So this, funny enough, is the first track they recorded for the album, recorded at Delane Lea Studios in London. I said I put a note that it was the second longest song on the album, over 7 minutes, but I don't think that's right because I think Flight of the Rat was a little bit longer.
I think you're right, yeah.
So I can't trust my own notes, but it is what it is. I like the opening riff because it's got that real creepy organ on it. This.
And of the 7 minutes, most of it's instrumental.
It didn't sound like an organ that I just did there.
No, it sounded more like a rat flying.
Yeah, it's got a really good guitar solo in the middle, and Gillan again in this song screams his head off, but it fits in perfect. It's got a good breakdown in it, and it's got crazy ass guitar at the end from Blackmore, and according to legend, he did that to irritate the producers.
I can believe that because there's like some sort of I wrote down here, the guitarist didn't know the song ended, so the rest of the band started playing again.
Well, apparently, according to legend and from what Blackmore's saying, he was just rubbing his guitar strings against the wall and the window frame and the door frame and just causing all kinds of chaos. And, it's funny because it seems to fit. I mean, it's a crazy ending, but it still seems to work.
Yeah, there was a little bit of discord with the keyboard in the middle that I felt was hard on the ears. But once again, it's just a really hard playing on it.
It's funny because we said it before, but that's what's funny about these songs is they're so heavy and driven fast for the most part. There's not a slow song on this album, really.
Oh, no.
Child in Time is probably the closest thing to a slow, but it's just got slow sections. Then you throw the organ in, which, the Doors are one of the, going back to them, one of the best known groups to utilize the organ. But this is used in this heavy rock. It's just kind of a strange feel, but it's so perfect to me.
And maybe that's what it is for me because it's a different thing than I've ever heard before. I've never heard a heavy metal organ before.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
And I gotta say, like, I've heard of the band Deep Purple, and I've heard that they were like one of the first heavy bands, but I didn't like really recognize them. And I really enjoyed this album. It was a good album.
Well, when you get into like Smoke on the Water, that's on Machine Head, and Machine Head as a whole, they definitely don't showcase the organ as much as they do in this.
Yeah.
It is used, and I love like the way they use it in the song Lazy, and we're definitely going to review that album at some point because that's a groundbreaking album without a doubt.
Yeah.
But this album is an amazing kickoff, and maybe that's why Deep Purple says they're not a heavy metal or a hard rock band, they're a heavy rock blues band. Maybe by throwing that organ in, they feel that makes them a blues band and nothing else. Call it what you will. I've always enjoyed the album. It is what it is.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed this album myself.
So do we want to get to winners and losers?
Let's do it.
Winners and losers.
So what would you say are your favorite songs on the album? And what would you say are your least favorite songs on this album?
I'm right in with you, I'm sure.
Let's see.
Child in Time is my top favorite. That was everything I could have hoped for in a song. It didn't feel like 10 minutes. Felt a lot shorter, and maybe it just because I like the message of it. I like the tone of it. Like your dad, I think I myself am a pacifist hippie, and so I love the message of this song, and I really got that message strongly throughout the entire song with the words, the writing, the singing style. Everything.
That's what I was going to say is I think the reason you like that is because you're so into lyrics. That's the one song you could understand what they were saying.
But it wasn't just the lyrics. Like the way they played their instruments was the exact same thing. It all gave that same message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an amazing song. So what else would you rate up there?
Flight of the Rat. I really had fun with that one. I that was my second favorite.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Where do you stand on favorites?
Well, why don't you tell me what your least favorites are?
Okay. Least favorite, Into the Fire. I pointed that one out just because I only had one note written on it. So I'm like, obviously that one's had the least amount of impact on me.
Do you have another one that's least favorite on this album?
I'll go with Hard Lovin' Man. Wasn't a bad song. I think I wasn't prepared for what this would do to my ears. That Discord. Fair. I probably had that same feeling that the engineer had.
Yeah, what are you doing with your guitar?
Please stop that.
No,
it's right in my ears on my headphones.
Yeah, I get it.
What about you?
You're right. We are right in line with almost everything. Without a doubt, my favorite song on the album is Child in Time. A lot of that's because of history that I have with the song. It's not a heavy radio play song. In fact, I don't know if I've ever even heard it played on the radio. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a perfect mix of lyrics, all the sounds.
I don't know if they would play this on the radio. It's a 10-minute song.
Yeah, that's part of it. But yeah, without a doubt, that's my favorite song. And funny enough, since you've stolen my notes, apparently, my second favorite song is Flight of the Rat.
Maybe I just really like your dad.
And it's a really close second to Child in Time because I think Flight of the Rat, like I said earlier, is better musically. And I don't mean that it's not a better song, but I just think that it's more prominent in the guitar solo, the organ solo, the drum solo. It's just more prominent in this. And I probably like Child in Time a little more because of my history with it and because of the meaning behind it and because of the variety of the length of the song, right?
Yeah, but Flight of the Rat, I think, really showcases the instruments, each individual instrument, as well as the singing and the writing. Well, I don't know about the writing because I couldn't really understand the words. I didn't need to.
No, you don't need to. You just need to feel the music, you know.
And that's something that Deep Purple has left me with, is that I can feel what the singer is trying to convey, not just by listening to what they're saying, but how they're saying it, how he's singing it. And that's something that Deep Purple has shown me that I'm going to carry on forever.
Well, one place where we're different, going on my favorite songs, one of your least favorites was Hard Lovin' Man. That's probably my third favorite. I really like that song. I really like the organ in it, and I just like everything about it. It's a good song to me. But my least favorites were right on line again. Into the Fire is my least favorite song on this album. And it's not a bad song. For this album having 7 songs, that falls number 7 for me, but I'm not going to skip that song either. I like it. I'm just rating it compared to the other songs, and it just doesn't do it for me as much, and we went over that. And probably my second least favorite song would be Living Wreck. Once again, it's a good song. It's just not my favorite.
You know, Living Wreck, if it would have had more clear lyrics, if the lyrics would have, or the vocals would have been more front and center, then I probably would have, because I like quirky, weird songs, and this one was a kind of a quirky, weird song.
Yeah, and it kind of is. And I think for me, the musical side of it, the guitar, the organ, nothing was very prominent in it. And when I say not very prominent, I mean compared to the other songs, right?
Yeah. It's a Deep Purple song, but there's better Deep Purple on this album.
Yeah, but this is a 40-minute album.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, when I sit down and listen to this album, or it's on my playlist or whatever it is while I'm working, I don't skip any of the songs. I like every song on this album. So take it with a grain of salt for what are my least favorite, because these are not songs I won't listen to. I still enjoy them. So is it time to get to the album rating?
Yep.
album rating.
So, out of 10, after listening to Deep Purple in Rock from 1970, what does Tyler rate this album after hearing every single song for the first time only?
Yeah.
Except for 3 seconds.
Except for 3
from
seconds.
Twister.
Yeah.
Yet to be proven.
Yeah, for real. I mean, that 2%, even so, 100% of this album was really good music. This was really good heavy rock. Blues rock, sure. Well, I'll go with blues rock. Let's see. Is it my cup of tea? This is a British band. So is it my cup of tea? Not 100% my cup of tea. Still, with as much of a performance as they put on, I've got to go really high with them. I'll give them a 9. I was going to go with 8, but I'm going to give them a 9.
And that's higher than I thought you would.
I thought I was going to do lower, but these guys, they're a great band. And I think it's because they showed me how to listen to their music, not by just listening for what the lyrics are saying, but how the lyrics are being said.
And that's really actually the reason that's surprising to me is, we kicked that off with Speed King, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at you as we're listening to this, and I'm waiting for your reaction to be like, holy shit, what have you got me listening to? We listened to Cream last week and Guess Who the week before. Now you've got this,
Yeah, Eric Clapton with the slow hand going into.
Yeah, I mean, so that really surprises me that you enjoyed it that much.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. So what about you? Where do you put this?
Well, I think we're somewhat on the same wavelength on these. 7 songs leaves me wishing this was a 10-song album or a double album or something, because I like every song on this album. Even the 2 I told you were my least favorite, I like them.
Yeah, if they had put 3 more songs on there, probably wouldn't have your least favorite. It would bump them up.
Yeah, I think just because you rated this a 9, I'm going to go for prominence. I'm going to go for the history of this album. I'm going to go for what it means to me historically and what I think it means to music historically, because I think it's the seed of what was to come for a lot of heavy rock groups that whether you like them or not, and a lot of them I don't, right? Yeah. If you look at something honestly and say, what does it really mean, because not everybody likes the same stuff, but if something was the creator of it, which I think this really is, everybody's inspired by something, right? And these guys, like we said at the beginning of the show, heard Led Zeppelin 1 and said, let's turn this up. Let's go to the next level, right? And I think they didn't do it. I think they went 2 or 3 levels above. I rate this album a 9.5 out of 10.
That's really good.
I don't know what would make it stronger, but to me, this is... and I'm into all kinds of music. I love the Beatles, the Doors, the Who, whatever you call it. Heavy rock is not my style of music, but Deep Purple is. And we'll get into that more with Machine Head and some of their other albums as we get into it. But this album is very important to me, important to history, and there's not a bad song on it. 4 very, very strong songs that are 10 out of 10 songs to me.
I did not expect to like Deep Purple as much as I did. I didn't expect to enjoy this album. Like just looking at the notes or the write up before going into it, I didn't expect to have as much fun to get so much perspective and scope on this as these guys did, and they really took my ignorance and showed me and taught me. That's impressive for 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's the cover's amazing on it. Intuitive as far as I'm concerned. Go check it out if you haven't. Look it up online. Go to Spotify, listen to this album because it's an amazing album. But until next time, make sure to reach out to us at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you find us. We appreciate you listening. Like always, we welcome any comments, complaints, suggestions for reviews, which we actually do have a few emails in of albums we need to get to. We just had some lined out, but we will get to them, I promise. And until next time,
we'll see you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.